Maya had never expected her nightly walks to lead her toward anything other than a peaceful lull and a breath of cool city air. She would tuck her hands into the pockets of her windbreaker, letting the flickering orange glow of the old street lamps guide her over cracked sidewalks. For months, she'd noticed how certain shop windows remained dark at all hours, boarded up or scrawled with graffiti. In a metropolis as sprawling as hers, abandoned storefronts were a common sight, yet something about these in particular drew her gaze. Perhaps it was the faint glint of light she spotted occasionally, or the flash of a silhouette moving past the grimy glass. For reasons she couldn't name, she felt an unexplainable pull to investigate those empties late at night. Her curiosity was tinged with an unshakable sense of dread. She'd brush it aside, reminding herself that the city was full of cryptic corners. Maybe squatters had found a temporary shelter, or perhaps small-time criminals used the location to store stolen goods. Nothing worth tangling with, for sure. But then she began to dream about them. Strange dreams in which a musty odour filled the air and faint jingling bells echoed in the dark. She would glimpse an emerald eye or what looked like a hunched figure rummaging through boxes. Days passed, and the nightmares became more vivid. Maya sensed a door had opened within her mind, something that refused to be shut again. She tried to push the images away, telling herself it was nothing but an overactive imagination. Still, the sense of being called, lured, remained. One evening she felt a tremor in the air as she approached the old bakery that had been shuttered for years. A single ragged, closed sign hung askew in the window. She approached cautiously, peering through a tear in the dark paper plastered over the glass. The scratchy bass of a muffled radio and the low hum of voices rose from behind the battered door. It was well past midnight, and yet there was life within. Maya's pulse quickened. With fear and curiosity colliding, she placed her hand on the door's handle. To her astonishment, it gave way and opened with barely a squeak. A trickle of warm, stale air slipped out. She slid through the narrow gap, her eyes adjusting to the dim interior. She suspected she was crossing a boundary she wouldn't be able to recross unscathed. Inside, a clutter of old shelves greeted her, stacked with chipped pastries displays and shattered mannequins from who knew which era. The smell of wet cardboard was strong, mingling with the dusty aftertaste that stung her nose. She tiptoed forward and paused when she saw a sprightly figure perched on a broken stool. Its craggy face was illuminated by the glow of a lamp rigged from string lights. Large, almond-shaped eyes darted up and locked with hers. Before she could bolt, it hopped down and waddled deeper into the gloom. Maya followed as if compelled from within. She soon realized that this was not just a back room. Beyond the wrappings of the old bakery's interior, a panel was slid open, and she emerged into a corridor that shouldn't have existed. There were booths made from stacked wooden crates. Faint chatter and the clink of coins drifted toward her ears. Yet, as she peered closer, she understood that these were not coins, at least not in the normal human sense. There was something ethereal about them, glimmering in a luminescent swirl of colour. The squat figures hunched around the tables were undeniably goblinsome, with leathery skin, others with warts and pointed teeth, all sporting cunning eyes. Maya stifled the urge to gasp. She had stumbled upon a thriving market, and in this hidden space, lit by flickering strings of pale lights, the world of the mundane was cast aside. At first, the goblins regarded Maya with suspicion, protective of this clandestine commerce. Yet, something about her wide-eyed awe seemed to reassure them she was harmless. A wizened goblin wearing a cobbled-together vest beckoned her closer. Its voice croaked with a disarmingly polite tone. "Welcome to our common ground, human," it said. "This is a place for trades. Surely you haven't come empty-handed?" Maya glanced around in confusion. She had no idea what currency was expected here. The vest-wearer snorted knowingly, then pointed to a table where half a dozen goblins were haggling with what looked like intangible wisps of light. That was when she realized These weren't coins. They were memories. Each glowing swirl contained entire recollections. Childhood birthdays, first kisses, heartbreaks, moments of triumph or fear. Bottled up, labelled and bartered. She shivered. How had they even harvested these? There was a tenderness to memories that made the thought of them being sold and traded feel like a violation. But as she watched further, an undercurrent of fascination gripped her. Some goblins had small glass orbs, each shimmering with vibrant colour. Others had shimmering vials. While one set was used to buy spells that hung in potion form or were scribbled in archaic script, others seemed to purchase illusions, intangible glimpses into other worlds. The old vestwearer coughed gently. We trade in rare spells, illusions, riddles, curses. Payment is in memories. Times are tough, and we must rummage for magic where we can, but not all memories are equally valued. He bowed slightly. I sense the curiosity in you. Look around. Perhaps you'll make a deal. Maya drifted from booth to booth in a mixture of awe and unease. One stall displayed fine silver chains that promised shape-shifting abilities if you could pay with a memory of a beloved pet. Another offered a night of perfect luck, provided you were willing to sacrifice a cherished childhood holiday. Elsewhere, an aging goblin with a twisted cane bartered intricate illusions that gave the wearer a single night of living inside any story or fantasy they desired. The price was a heartbreak memory. Some trades required such painful recollections that humans probably welcomed parting with them. Others demanded something precious, something you'd never want to lose. Maya's mind whirled with possibilities. Indeed, there were moments she might be happy to forget forever. But was that truly worth it? She paused at a glowing cabinet where spells shimmered in scrolls, each radiating a faint hue. A sign read, "Spells to shape fate. Conjure illusions. Command elements priced in the currency of memory." She felt a twinge of temptation. A small, cracked plaque read, "Summon light in darkness. 3 memories of safe places." She recognized that each memory had significant emotional weight. How many safe places did she recall? There was her grandmother's kitchen, with the smell of cinnamon and honey, that warm corner under her father's old juniper tree, and the library carrel, where she first found solace in books. Could she willingly surrender those? Before she could dwell too long, another goblin squeaked to get her attention. He wore goggles that magnified his eyes, giving him a perpetually startled look. "Come, come," he urged. "Looking for something new? Something delightfully intangible?" He pointed to a rusted rack of small vials, each swirling with an opalescent liquid. "These are stolen memories, mind you. We acquire them from unsuspecting dreamers." Maya grimaced, her stomach turning. She recognized these vials would be used as currency for someone else's benefit. "Why do you do that?" she whispered, though she wasn't sure the goblin or any of them would truly understand her question. He merely tapped his goggles, as if that explained everything. Feeling uneasy, Maya kept moving. Despite her revulsion, her curiosity burned brighter. She hadn't come all this way just to turn around. There was a whispering sense that, if these goblins could trade in memories, they might also know how to recover them. She had a younger sister who had vanished 3 years ago. The official records stated she was likely deceased, but Maya had never believed it. Her sister's last known location was an abandoned bookstore not too far from here, an ominous parallel to what Maya was seeing tonight. If anyone knew secrets about stolen recollections, perhaps these goblins did. The same magical commerce that frightened her could hold the key to discovering that final link to her sister. She navigated to a canopied stall where an elaborate display of potions, scrolls, and pocket-sized mirrors was arranged. A single goblin woman sat behind it, her leathery skin painted in swirling patterns of pink and green. At Maya's approach, she fixed her with a gaze that radiated a quiet intensity. "Do you seek knowledge? or do you seek forgetting? She asked, voice soft. Maya's mind surged with desperation. I need to find my sister, she blurted. She disappeared, and I think memories someone else's, or even mine, might be the key to discovering what happened. The goblin woman nodded solemnly, as if she'd heard 1,000 such pleas. From beneath the table, she retrieved a dusty ledger that seemed to vibrate with faint, magical energy. Many who come here yearn to reclaim what they've lost, the goblin said, opening the ledger. Inside were columns of names, dates, cryptic runes, and odd sketches of swirling lights. Some folk sell memories that are not their own, and some purchase illusions that become their reality. But we also record certain deeper trades. Her finger hovered over an older entry. The ink nearly faded. Maya leaned closer, heart pounding. It was her sister's name, Janelle Foster. Right there, along with a date matching the time of her disappearance. Next to the name was a strange rune and a footnote reading, Memory sold. The sound of mother's laughter. Maya's breath hitched as she read. The goblin woman turned the ledger around. Your sister sold a precious memory for a spell. Let me see. It seems the transaction was for a gate key. That's advanced magic, human. If she got a gate key, she might have traveled somewhere different. Maya's eyes prickled. Where? How do I find her? The goblin woman lifted a tiny scroll from beneath the ledger. This is a residual link, an echo. If you power it with a memory of equivalent value, it can guide you to her. But I warn you, reclaiming the memory she sold might be harder than you think. It's out there in circulation, twisted and traded, or consumed by another. Some spells devour memories for fuel. Maya swallowed. I'll do whatever it takes. Determination firmed her voice, though fear twisted in her gut. The goblin woman offered her the tiny scroll. To activate it, you must sacrifice something of like worth, a memory that's dear to you, perhaps the warmth of a loved one's embrace. Maya's throat went dry. The memory of her mother's last hug came flooding back, soft arms wrapping around her shoulders, a quiet hum of comfort, the smell of loneliness. Could she truly give that up? Finally, she shook, but her conviction held. If that's the price, I'll do it. She bowed her head, and the goblin woman pulled out a small, delicate orb. Place your hand on it and think of the memory. Then exhale, as if you were breathing out a secret. Maya did as instructed, tears slipping down her cheeks as she felt the once warm recollection being coaxed from her mind. The orb glowed golden, then sank into a swirl of pink luminescence. The moment it was done, Maya felt a hole in her chest, a gentle hollowing. She knew the memory was gone. It was like trying to recall a distant dream with no detail. She clenched her teeth, determined to stay the course. The goblin woman nodded. The scroll is now charged. Carry it, and if your sister is still within the mortal realm, it will guide you. There was a pause. But be warned, if she has crossed through certain gates, retrieving her might require more than memory. Pray you are not too late. Clutching the scroll, I hurry away from the stall. The old vest-wearing goblin that first greeted her watched her go with mild interest, but no one stopped her. It seemed they allowed those who had made a transaction to leave, no questions asked. She slipped back out through the bakery, uncovered the door that latched onto the corridor, and stepped into the crisp night air. Though she was physically out of that shadowy marketplace, it clung to her senses like a layer of fog. Over the next few days, Maya lived with a disconcerting void in her mind. She recalled her mother's name, her face, but not that last comforting hug. It gave her an odd sense of detachment, yet the scroll she carried would pulse with a faint warmth whenever she ventured out at night. She followed its direction blindly. It led her through twisting alleys and over catwalks above deserted factory yards. Each step triggered a swirl of dread and hope. She made sure to carry a small camera, wanting to document any new developments. What would the world say if they saw proof of these goblin deals? On the 7th night, the scroll guided her across a series of side streets until she found herself outside an old library building. Its windows were cracked, the signs so faded it was almost illegible. The scroll vibrated, nearly hopping in her hand. She pushed open the library's warped door. Dust motes swirled in the faint light. Shelves lay toppled, books scattered. A sense of abandonment weighed heavily. Yet in the far corner, near the old reference section, she spotted something unusual. A single standing mirror, framed in what looked like hammered copper. The surface was covered by a piece of black cloth. Maya approached and gently lifted the cloth away. Her face reflected back at her in the gloom, but something moved behind her. She whirled around. No one was there. Heart-pounding, she turned back to the mirror and studied it more carefully. There, behind her reflection, was a corridor of sorts. It looked eerily similar to the hidden passage in the bakery. Could this be another door to that marketplace? Or to somewhere else altogether? She placed her palm against the mirror. A gentle ripple distorted her image. She wanted to yank her hand back, but the swirl of curiosity and the scroll's insistent warmth urged her on. Gathering her bravery, she pressed forward, feeling her entire body slide through the surface like stepping into a cool mist. She emerged into a narrow passage lit by a row of softly glowing crystals. A hush enveloped her, like the acoustics of a dream. The corridor ended at a door etched with swirling patterns, runes that, to Maya, seemed carved with intense purpose. She pressed her ear to the wood and heard a muffled whimper from the other side. The scroll glowed, indicating her sister might be near. Heart hammering, she pushed the door open. Inside was a dimly lit chamber lined with shelves of potions and spells, the same kind she'd seen peddled in the clandestine market. Hunched over a table was a haggard figure in shabby clothes, hair matted, expression vacant. Maya's breath caught. Janelle. She looked older than memory, her eyes dull as if behind a film. She clutched an empty vial in her shaking hand. Maya rushed forward, her sister turning at the sound. Recognition flitted behind those eyes, but it was faint. Who are you?" Janelle mumbled. Maya fought the panic rising in her throat. "It's me, your sister, Maya," she said gently, placing a hand on Janelle's shoulder. Janelle shivered, glimpses of clarity emerging. Tears welled in Maya's eyes. She could see the toll the memory trade had taken. If Janelle had surrendered not just her memory of their mother's laughter, but used that gate key to cross realms, she may have lost even more along the way. In the corner, a small goblin perched on a rock, arms folded, eyeing them with mild annoyance. He was missing part of one ear, and his face bore a jagged scar. "She cannot leave," he growled. "She owes debts. She's bartered away fragments of memory and life for spells beyond her means." Janelle flinched at his voice. Maya recognized the fear in her sister's expression. She turned on the goblin, anger surging in her chest. "She's leaving with me. Name your price, but I'm taking her home." The goblin's eyes glinted. "Her body is here, yes, but without paying the final toll, her mind is forfeit. She sold crucial memories to me. Her earliest friendships, moments of joy, those keep her tied here." Maya felt a lava-like fury bubbling inside her. "What do you want?" she demanded. The goblin shrugged. "It's not about gold. It's about magic and memories. Janelle promised me the memory of her greatest personal triumph in exchange for an impermeable ward, but she's got nothing left to give. Perhaps you'd like to buy that memory back." He pulled a small jar from a shelf, shimmering with a deep violet glow. "She can't properly remember or appreciate her life without it. It's dear, the proudest she's ever felt. In your life, do you have something equal in value?" Maya's mind spun. She'd already sacrificed her mother's last hug. What other memories did she treasure that might match Janelle's greatest triumph? Her eyes flitted with desperation. Then she remembered the memory she'd been most reluctant to lose. The day she overcame a crippling fear in college and found her calling as a writer. It was the memory that still fueled her sense of accomplishment, the root of her confidence. Could she truly sacrifice that? She glanced at Janelle, trembling, hollow-eyed. "Take it," Maya whispered, tears burning trails down her cheeks. "Take that memory from me, but free my sister." The goblin's grin widened, revealing sharp, crooked teeth. "Very well." He placed the jar on a table, fetched an identical-looking orb, and beckoned Maya forward. She knelt next to the small figure, her heart pounding so violently she thought she might collapse. With one touch of his spindly finger to her temple, she felt the memory being tugged out. She saw herself in that moment of triumph, standing on a stage, reading aloud words she had written, heart beating with a sense of possibility as an audience applauded. Then it was gone, sinking into the orb with a swirl of golden sparks that quickly turned violet. A chunk of herself vanished with it. She gasped as the goblin withdrew his hand. The jar in his other claw shimmered in unison, and Maya could see a ripple pass through Janelle. The dullness lifted from her eyes, replaced by a spark of recognition. "Maya," croaked Janelle, voice cracking. Maya threw her arms around her sister, tears of relief streaming. The goblin placed the jar on a high shelf. "A deal is a deal," he said curtly, as though completing a mere business transaction. "Take her. But know that once you pass back to your realm, none of this can be undone." Maya nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. Janelle leaned on Maya for support, new tears etching clean paths down her dirty cheeks. She muttered apologies for her folly, her voice laced with confusion over what precisely she'd done to end up in such deep debt. Clinging to one another, they left the chamber. By retracing the corridor, they found the mirror, still rippling faintly like a watery surface. With one last backward glance, Maya helped Janelle step through. They emerged back into the abandoned library, the stale smell of old paper and heartbreak enveloping them. In the nights that followed, Janelle stayed with Maya, slowly piecing her recollections together. Some were gone forever, hijacked or consumed by the trade she had made, but she began to recall enough, a desire for powerful spells to combat her insecurities, an impetus to vanish from the constraints of her life. The memory trades had spiraled out of her control. While she admitted to the pain of losing those pieces of herself, she tried to hold on to the gratitude that she was alive and with her sister again. Maya, herself, bore the consequences of what she had sacrificed. Her confidence wavered. Whereas she once approached each day with conviction, she now felt uncertain, as if missing a foundation she couldn't quite name. She'd stare at her old notebooks, scanning the lines of text that once excited her, feeling only a faint stirring of inspiration. She remained determined to move forward, for Janelle's sake, but at night, she dreamt of that clandestine marketplace, wondering if it still existed in the vacant storefronts around the city, and if some part of her would always remain there, captured in an orb or swirling in a jar. Weeks passed. News erupted that a string of locals had reported nightmares about lost memories. Some recounted half-remembered deals with creatures haggling for treasured recollections. Others woke with a sense of intangible loss. The city officials declared it a phenomenon of stress and mental health crises. For Maya, the rumors struck close. She knew the truth, but could not risk exposing the goblins, uncertain what that might unleash. She also felt the gentle tug of curiosity whenever she passed another abandoned storefront. She longed sometimes to step in and see if the old vest-wearing goblin or the goblin woman with the painted face recognized her. Perhaps she wondered if she could buy back her memories. But she recalled the steep cost, each trade requiring another sacrifice. Then, one night, she ventured out alone. She needed answers. Perhaps a more benevolent transaction existed, some exchange that might restore what she'd lost without demanding an even more vital part of her heart. She crept back to the old bakery, peering through the same tear in the dark paper. As before, she heard the hum of conversation. She tested the handle, found it locked. She gave 3 brisk knocks. After a moment, the door opened to reveal the old goblin in the vest. He smirked. "Back again, human? Once you taste the deals, it's hard to stay away." Maya inhaled sharply. "I need a way to heal, to fill the vacuum left by the trades." He raised a bushy eyebrow. "Healing? That's rarely asked for. Most come for illusions, power, or vengeance. We are no hospital. The cost for such a remedy is high." Despite her trembling nerves, Maya stepped inside. The bustle of the hidden market enveloped her once more. She spotted new stalls, new deals, fresh jars of memories. She saw one glowing with a rich gold swirl labelled First Love's Kiss, another a swirling turquoise labelled Taste of Victory. Each one was a piece of a soul, bartered away. The old goblin led her to a new store, a booth with dream catchers and strings of shimmering beads. An elderly goblin with drooping eyelids offered a soft smile. Maya explained her plight, that she'd given up a memory that formed the bedrock of her self-worth. She asked if there was a remedy, a way to mend the hole without stealing from others. The droopy-eyed goblin touched a dream catcher, setting its beads rattling in faint, chiming notes. "You cannot simply replace a memory with something else," it said gently. "But you can weave new memories that carry a similar warmth. You must create fresh experiences that evoke the same sense of achievement or solace. No magic can replicate a memory once it's lost, but new illusions can patch some of the holes in your mind. That is the closest to healing we can offer." Maya's eyes teared up. It took her a moment to see the wisdom in that cryptic statement. She realized that the droopy-eyed goblin was telling her that the best patch for a missing piece of her past was forging a new, meaningful present. The formula, so to speak, was a small webbing of shimmering threads that the goblin offered in exchange for a lighter memory, perhaps a school-day embarrassment, or the sting of a minor betrayal. "Nothing precious," the goblin assured her. "Just a small negative recollection you won't miss too deeply. That negative memory can be your payment. In return, you get this magical net that helps anchor new experiences, so they carry an extra sense of accomplishment." Maya weighed the moral implications. She would be giving up a negative recollection, which felt less daunting, but still. Everything had consequences. In the end, she extended her hand and whispered the memory of a teenage humiliation, letting it slide away. The goblin caught it in a glass sphere. Then it handed her the shimmering net. She tucked the net inside her jacket, feeling a subtle warmth against her heart. Maybe it was just hope, yet she had no illusions that all problems were solved. She still had to live with the holes left behind. But at least now she had something to guide her toward filling those empty spaces with new joys and achievements, rather than dwelling on what she'd lost. As she stepped back onto the street, the night sky felt different. Less oppressive, more open. She inhaled the city air and felt a quiet strength ignite. She didn't possess the vivid memory of that triumphant moment from before, but she had the capacity to build something new. Next to her, the old bakery's door clicked shut, leaving it once more an unremarkable, abandoned facade. Yet Maya knew that the hidden marketplace where goblins shuffled and dealt in stolen recollections was still alive in the city's forgotten corners. Other souls would inevitably stumble upon it, lured in by curiosity or desperation, paying with experiences held dear. Some, like Maya, might find a balanced trade, a glimmer of hope. Others would lose themselves in the lust for power or the temptation to discard their deep-seated pains. Clutching the shimmering net, Maya made her way home. Beyond the regret, a kernel of gratitude took root in her heart. Her sister was safe. She herself was scarred but not broken. Granted, the cost had been great, the hush of a mother's embrace, the glow of personal triumph. Yet she was free to live, to create new achievements, to shape new memories. And in a city where the boundary between human longing and magical cunning danced so close, that was a priceless gift indeed. If the hidden goblin market thrived beneath the surface, it was by feeding on the pieces of human lives we hold closest. Maya resolved to guard her future memories fiercely, forging her own magic in the everyday moments of hope and love that no goblin could ever truly replicate. And so she walked on through the shadows, determined that, even in a world full of secret goblin deals, the brightness of new possibilities would guide her forward.